Hi, everyone, and welcome to Abduction Victim to Survivor. Unfortunately, Sarah's not able to be here today. She had to go out of the country for a family emergency, but she will be back for the next episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing her again. It's been a while. But today, I am with a very dear friend of mine, and I'm just so pleased that we've come to this point where we are friends. She's an amazing human being, fantastic mother. I've known her for many, many years. She had two children who were abducted to Tunisia by their father. She became part of Team Hope and was helping other people through Team Hope. She also was doing a lot of advocacy with family abduction, really trying to help others. And I just commend her so much for that because it was very hard work with a lot of obstacles. And she just kept forging forward and working really hard to try and help other people. And I'm also very honored that I was there when her son was reunited with her. So she has quite a story to tell you, a long journey over many years and lots of challenges, so many struggles. And she was she was actually a mama bear, and she did everything she could for her children and continues to do everything she can for her children. So I'd like to introduce you to Edeanna. Hi, Edeanna.
Hi, Abby. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. It's wonderful. And it is just always so great to see you. Um,
Ditto, and I'm grateful to be here. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's nice. I think that our audience would like to hear your story. It's a very compelling story. And what do you think? Would you like to start on the day of the abduction?
I can certainly start there. Yeah.
Okay. It's not when things started. Yeah.
Yes. The day of the abduction. It was actually November 11th, 2011. And so Veterans Day. Um, and I learned very quickly that, many abductions occur during holiday seasons, and also that is literally the worst time to learn that you are becoming the seeking parent of an abducted child. Um, so my children were with my parents. I had to go out of town that weekend, and it was their father's weekend for visitation. And they he picked the children up early from my parents' home and took them to Dulles Airport and was able to get on a plane and land in Tunisia. The next day, so it was the 12th that I learned of the abduction. Um, I got a call mid morning from their father, and we had just finalized our divorce. We'd just gone to the last court hearing. Like, this was his first visitation after that. And he did not leave the courtroom happy. So I was very nervous about this visitation to begin with. But actually, when he called, there was just, so we didn't want to talk. I said, if you want to speak, please make an appointment and we can speak with the lawyers. And he was insistent that I listen to him. And eventually just told me, this is the worst phone call of your life. I have the kids. We're in Tunisia. And when he said, this is the worst phone call of your life, there was something about the way his voice echoed. And there's a space in his family home in the courtyard in Tunisia. And it was just the echo of his voice. Like, I had zero doubt. There was no, oh, he's just fibbing. He's trying to get under my skin. I was very certain at that point. And I remember just saying, thank you. I think I was stunned. And then I hung up. And then I tried to figure out what do I do now? And so I think the very next thing I did was call my parents. And and then for the next couple weeks just kept trying to convince people that yes, he really isn't, he's not, this is not a joke. Like they wouldn't believe me. And so they had to, everyone had to go prove for themselves. So it was a long journey. Just trying to figure out what can I do and also convince other people that there was something to do, that this wasn't a wait and see scenario, that we're not even at a point of trying to prevent something from happening. Like they are in Tunisia. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Um,
How old were they at the time?
Zainab was 2.5. Well, she was turning 3 in January, and Islam was 5.
So 3 and 5.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I
Yeah,
always say
two
2
and a half.
and 5 because yeah. So yeah, they were literally 2 and 5. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
little.
they were very little. Yes. So much so that I was luckily able to begin starting Skype calls with them. And of course, I wasn't on the other side to understand like what was the motivation there because I mean, on the other end, their father's family hadn't seen him in years, and he showed up with the 2 kids out of nowhere. So, I mean, I don't know what that story sounded like on their end and their side, and so um, I was able to speak with the kids randomly on Skype, and it was really challenging. But one of the things that still stands out to me today is that with Zainab's birthday approaching, and as the time was going on, this is a 2-year-old. I said, well, your birthday's coming. What would you like for your birthday? If you could get anything in the world, what would you want? And her only answer was, I want you, mommy.
Oh my gosh.
I want you.
Wow.
And I said, well, I want to be with you too, but would you like a princess? Like, can I get you a doll? Because she had this thing with pink doll houses at the time. So would you like a pink doll house? And yes, but I want you. And she would just keep saying that. So that was, yeah, small.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. It
You handled it
out.
beautifully, but you handled it beautifully. You didn't scare her, you didn't upset her. You did your best not to upset her. You were calm and
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that was always my grounding space is that even when things, of course, you said the story starts before the abduction. And I think my overarching desire was always to not have the kids panic or feel anxious that something was wrong. So even when the threat of abduction was always there. So, we would talk a lot about knowing your routine, like if, mommy's supposed to pick you up today. So if anyone else picks you up, just make sure somebody calls and you hear mommy say, okay, before that happens. And of course, I mean, they're so tiny, they don't really comprehend that. But, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of like helping families find the right language at the right age to be able to set up those safety nets. And also for those who like the trustworthy adults around them, my parents should have called me and said, hey, the kids are being picked up early, is that okay? If they were being picked up from school, like the school should know the schedule. And if this is not B day and the right person's picking them up on B day, then I need to speak to a person for A day to confirm this before, it's not just, oh, this is their dad, this is their mom. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to my son because he was supposed to be in day camp that day, never showed up, and nobody ever called me to tell me he wasn't there. I found out after he was supposed to be home. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There should be those safeguards, but I think people don't, their minds don't necessarily go towards something bad happening, especially involving a parent. That's
Not with
why
the
it's so
parent.
complicated. Like, how do you tell your children to be afraid of their parent? That's
You shouldn't, but you should teach them
right.
what are actions and activities that are concerning. How do you handle this when this happens? I mean, there's games I'm sure you could come up with. I just wasn't smart enough at the time to do such a thing. But yeah, so I did the best that I could always to
Sure.
no matter how angry you are, it's not the children's fault. And I never wanted them to feel that,
Right.
which was hard because, of course, they were getting it on the other side. So, you're always the bad guy, and then you're always the one solving the problem. Um, so, yeah. And then the story evolves, but it involves a lot. So I'm not sure where to take you from here.
So when you were trying to convince people that
Hmm.
he wasn't going to bring them back, and that they were relatively, I don't know if in danger is the right word, or the culture and everything is so different that the way they were going to be treated there is different than they would be treated here is.
I think how they were going to be treated wasn't topmost concern for me. Their care was.
Sure, yeah.
Who was caring for them? I mean, think of it now. I look at my children now, and they're branching off into new spaces, and the idea of leaving home is a scary thing in their late teens, ready to go off to college. So when you take a child at 2 and 5 out of the only environment they've ever known, the only security they've ever known, and plop them into a place they've never been around people they've only met on Skype at moments in time, speaking a language that they are wholly unfamiliar with on a fluency level. Um, those were the things that were most concerning. It was like, what is their bedtime? What are they eating? Like, what are they being introduced to in terms of like, they're not getting a hug at night. I'm not there. Like, I know my children. There's a part of me that always said, am I doing the right thing? Like, am I being selfish? Could they be okay? And I used that a lot as a measure throughout the abduction period. Um, like, could they be okay? Am I personally just hurt? And I can be. Is this my trauma, or are they also traumatized? And I think continually asking yourself that is a really important question, because there is a lot of ego that goes into parenting. Um, I know what's best for my children. That is true. I grew them in my body. I know what's best for them. But my best doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else's best wouldn't be okay. Like,
Right.
so to what extent is where they are not okay was really a measure I had to keep asking myself. And I've lost my train now, but
No, what you're talking about is so important because it's one of the things I admire about you and some other people that I know. And not everybody has this ability to step out of themselves, maybe away from their ego, to think about what is best for my children.
yeah,
Not not everybody can do that. And I think it's exemplary behavior because it's I, we're here to protect our children. You have a baby, you hold them in your arms when they're born, and you make all these promises to them. I promise I'm going to protect you. I promise I'm going to do this. And how much is it from ego? And um, yeah, I kind of forgot where I was going to, but
yeah. Well, I think
but
the original question
yeah,
was, the culture and the concern about their safety. And so there are certain aspects of their families. Let me put it in their families' culture. So their father's family's culture did not respect women's spaces, and I was not
yes,
raised to be anybody's maid, and I certainly didn't want my child to be raised in an environment where she was seen as an extension of the household and not an extension of society. So that was a big concern, but of course she's 2. So then there was hygiene. I mean, honestly, I was always worried about their hygiene, like everything, all the important pieces of a child's natural growth. So I wasn't in a space where I was worried they would be physically harmed, because they were also the children of their father, who was the baby of the family. And in that family culture, that family's culture, I'm not talking about their, you know,
country.
national, yeah,
Yeah.
remember their family's culture. That gave them a higher space in that home. So there was some level of relief that they were in the family home. They would be taken care of. They would be bathed. They had food. There were tons of cousins and people around. So there was that part that was a bit of relief. But of course, then you're dealing with them wondering, where are you? Because then they're being told like, oh well, mommy decided not. And then it's you not being there that is the reason for the separation.
Yeah.
And then there's the legal hurdles of, I mean, what do you do? I'm an American citizen. I don't, I've been to Tunisia twice before then for very short periods of time. And I didn't speak the language. I didn't know the culture. I didn't know the landscape. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the law. And then you quickly have to learn, I think, in that first weekend. So the day of the 12th, that Saturday, I believe it was either a Saturday or a Sunday. And trying to get a hold of law enforcement, I called the local police and they were like, well, you need to call the police where the kids were abducted from. So I called Virginia police and they were not helpful. And then I didn't even know it was a federal, you know, uh, it was against federal law to abduct your children.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Well, to take them across state lines or out of the country. Yeah.
yes, both, which is a
Yeah.
way down the road. That's a whole other piece of child abduction, is the domestic versus the international, is actually ends up falling under the same lines of frustration, because within the United States, jurisdictions almost feel the same as if you're crossing borders internationally, trying to get any help. So eventually I found the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It was a weekend. There wasn't much help to be had. I was told on Monday, someone will contact you. And I'm like, what? And so then I got, well, you can find this link online to this like family abduction thing, and that will help you. It's like, I don't know if you remember that
I
document.
remember.
I think it was like 500 or 600 pages. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh my
It's
God.
hard, and when you're experiencing trauma, it interferes with your frontal cortex, so you have trouble processing thoughts and thinking concretely and reading and absorbing, and yeah,
Yes.
it's yeah,
All of it. Well, I do
yeah,
note that that was where I learned it was a federal crime and you should call the FBI. So I called the FBI and they hung up on me twice.
they hung up on
They
you.
hung up on me. They were like, this is not the first one. It was whoever answered said, this is not a matter for the FBI, ma'am. And the second time, I think they put me on hold and then just hung up.
Oh,
Um,
gee.
but yeah, I was devastated. Remember, I was not home at the time. I had been out of town. So I got on a plane, got back to Virginia, and the first thing I did was walk into the Virginia State Police Station. And I don't know if the determination on my face read through or what, but I told the person at the desk why I was there. They did the hold, please. I'll go talk to somebody. And someone else came out, and I looked at this man and I told him what happened. And I don't know, there was an invisible line. He was not leaving me, and I knew that. I wasn't sure he knew that, but he was actually the most incredible individual I could have crossed paths with. He knew exactly what to do. He brought me in the back, sat me down, took all the right intake, put the kids into the NCIC, like all these terms that you later learn and become very, very familiar with, an
Yes,
expert
all the
on.
acronyms.
But he was the first person who knew what to do, and that I wasn't trying to learn to lead the way. Um, he started a report. He got an NCIC entry. He also had a contact at the FBI. So he called his contact at the FBI to open a case with them and made sure that we were connected. So it was that was how I got a case open with the FBI and had our first agent assigned to our case. He also met me the next day, I think, or 2 days after, and took me to the courthouse and like walked me through, you know, what um what I needed in order to make sure that, this was jurisdictionally a crime in Virginia, that there were orders for the return of the children. Everybody needed this individual in their life, and he is the reason I later started advocacy, because knowing that I don't know where we would have been without him, but it shouldn't have taken me so long to find him. And of all the people I interacted with, they all should have been a him. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense because I had the same thing.
Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
anyone who didn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we get
Yeah.
into advocacy, because then we're like, well, wait a minute, did you do
Yes.
this? And did you do, okay, take a deep breath. This isn't the route. They're not going to do this. And like, but we shouldn't be the ones. Like, there are laws. So there should
Yes.
be policies and procedures.
Exactly.
Law
It's
enforcement's
not an
responsible for this. So they should know
Yep.
what to do. They shouldn't be hanging up on you at the FBI. They should know this is a federal crime.
It's not a matter of opinion. It is a matter of law.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And the
Yeah.
laws, it is implicit that when I call you, you were supposed to create this NCIC entry. There is no waiting period. And you're supposed to do A, B, and C to start looking for this child, because those 48 hours immediately after an abduction are incredibly important, not just for any abducted child, but all abducted children, whether it's a
Right.
parent or not. Yeah.
Right.
In
Yeah.
our case, it was too late because we already knew where they were, and it wasn't in the United States. So, but yeah, so then a lot happened. A court case was opened in Tunisia on our behalf by an attorney I was introduced to, of course, internationally. And then, of course, there was my daughter who's turning 3 and wanted her mommy for her birthday. So I did everything I could here. And then I boarded a plane. I was told it would be maybe 3 weeks at the most before the court, case proceeded, and, I'd be able to bring the kids back. And so I said, well, let me just go and be there. And so I packed a carry-on. I had a carry-on bag. I laugh now, and I guess nobody else listening knows why, but 2.5 years later, I came back. So that's the laugh.
The carry-on. Yeah.
No, by then I had a carry-on and a full bag, and then of course Zainab's, stuff. Because Zainab,
Yeah. Going there, you had a
yeah,
carry-on,
so
not
going
knowing
there,
you were going to be there for so long.
yeah, there was,
Yeah.
and
That's a long time.
a lot of people. So when you talk about cultural, this is a Tunisian thing. I've learned, maybe it's just a Tunisian lawyer thing. I don't know, but it's yeah. No, this is fine. We'll take care of it. It won't take very long. But then you get there and everything can be appealed. So I have custody. I have at least 6 custody orders granting me custody in Tunisia over the course of 3 years. But you go from the local court, and then that can be appealed, and then you got to go to the appellate court, and then that can be appealed, and you go to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court decision doesn't get changed. But by that point, you've been through at least, I think there's like at least 3 judges signing on each level. So, I mean, like you've been through like 15 judges, and then oh well, that's just to recognize your international orders in your right of custody. And like, oh, we said it, but we can't enforce it until, while there's a an appeal. So, the taking parent just goes, okay, well, I'm just going to write an appeal, write. They don't really have to do anything. And of course, then you're the foreigner. And by that time, the children are Tunisian. They are no longer children. They are products of Tunisia. They are commodity almost. And it's like, you were this foreign invader. What are you doing here? And, you know, although the judges who are reading law and making a decision based on law can only make one decision, because it's very, very clear you had no right to bring these children here. There was no, but then you've got to prove yourself over and over to all these judges who are talking to you in the courtroom that, whatever they've been told, oh, well, and the prevailing thing was you stuck the FBI on it. Like, you got to take the FBI off of it. Like, how can he go back? You've put the FBI on him. Trying to understand that, like, if I had the power and ability to have the FBI go after people, I mean, that would make me a very powerful person, and you and I wouldn't be having a conversation. My children will be home right now. Like, if that was the extent of my power. But that is the extent of just the manipulation that the other party, I mean, they just ludicrous things. And you have to defend it all, and yeah, it's crazy. It happens here in the US too. The court system is just really focused on adversary versus
Yes.
adversary
Yes.
and not the children. So
Yes.
who cares if we're adversaries? Your job isn't to, referee and put these kids back with whom your job is to determine where is the safest space for these children to be. It's
Yes.
with one, the other, both, or none. And that's really like the point it should be of the family law system, but it's not. It's how do I make sure that these kids always get exposed to these two individuals, poisonous or not? And it's crazy that if for me, I could get a protective order, but not my children. I from the same individual for the same purpose, and it's both. But that's the parent. But that's an abuser. So if he's abusive to me and you know that, and I am the caretaker of these children, how do you make the assessment that it's dangerous for me to be around them and give me a protective order? And that it's safe for them to be around that person?
Yeah. If he has those tendencies, even if he hasn't done it towards the children yet, it doesn't necessarily mean he won't ever.
Well, and if I am a protecting parent and I'm reporting to the court, these children are in danger.
Yes.
But then you go, oh, well, when it's you against him, I believe you can be protected. But when you put the kids in it, then you're just you're just trying to get around the system. You're trying to be manipulative. You're really trying to get at this person. Like you're trying to keep the kids from him. What? If
And
these same kids reported abuse at the age of
yeah.
18, then the courts would go, okay, you definitely need to be protected. But do it at 17, and it's, well, we're going to order you to have meetings with people who might observe you, and then we won't really follow through to make sure you did it, but we'll order it. And unless you come back and complain, we won't really care if you did or not because nobody's holding you accountable and nobody's checking to make sure that you did it. But if you come back, then you're being adversarial. I mean, it's just crazy. And yeah, so in a foreign space, you are the entity that is just trying to cause trouble. In the US space, in family court, you are part of two entities trying to cause trouble. It's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not making excuses with this, but there are many, many people who abuse the system.
Yes.
And I think because of that abuse and their lying, that it makes it even harder for judges to make determinations because
It's
of
not just judges. I've had this conversation in the advocacy space many times with law enforcement. In fact, one of the biggest pushes we had through our nonprofit was for law enforcement to create policies and procedures to apply the law. And 9 times out of 10 you ask a law enforcement officer, like, what happens when someone reports? The answer is they turn it over to a domestic. If it's a child, oh, the child's been taken. If they know that there's a custody order in place, suddenly it's a domestic issue. They don't even pursue the line of like, well, where is the child? I've heard so many instances where people have reported the other parent has taken the child and they can't get anyone to care for them. They don't know what to do because they go, oh, well, go to court. It always happens. Everything happens on a weekend or a holiday. Court's not open. You have to wait 48 hours until the courts get open. Then you have to wait in line. And then you have to convince somebody about the type of crime it is. And you don't even know this is a crime. You just know your kids have been abducted. And, law enforcement could maybe try. The courts maybe could try going, okay, if in every instance we stop believing that this is just adversarial and just trust that there is a missing child, how often, if we documented this, would it be true? Like, we don't even have the right statistics to know that what we say is true actually is true. Because the number of children who actually are abducted by a parent or have an abduction episode. That's 250,000 kids a year. It's like 275,000 kids a year. That number hasn't changed since they started
Right.
documenting these numbers in like 1999.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's increased, but how do we know that? So the number of factual ones where somebody went in and said, from law enforcement, entered anything into a database and actually documented it as an abduction, what you get like maybe 2,000 at the most, 2,500 a year that you get in your annual statistics.
Over 200,000.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the self-reports where people are going out and doing interviews. When you look at the law enforcement NCIC entries, if you're looking at NCIC data, I think you get like 25 stranger abductions annually and maybe like
Or 100, I
2,000.
think it's 100, around 100, 150 stranger abductions, and it is over 200,000 for the family abductions.
In the NCIC reports.
Um,
I
it's
think
been
you're confusing. There are two different. There's a study, and the studies that they do go into the hundreds of thousands, and that's more accurate. It's closer to reality than the annual law enforcement reports
Oh, you're saying what law enforcement actually enters into NCIC.
versus the
Yeah,
reality of the number
right,
of family
right,
abductions, yeah, that are reported
right.
outside of law enforcement.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So the problem is law enforcement isn't actually documenting these things. So we have no real statistics to go by to say that we really do have that many people lying about it. Anyway, it
yeah,
does make it hard. No matter what, the truth and reality is that it happens and it puts children in danger. It changes people's lives forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get help. I was one of the lucky ones. You had a very good officer at first too. So
We were
there
blessed
are the
along the
good,
way.
there are the very, very good law enforcement out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would like to think that when they first go into the field of being an officer, that they have the heart for it. They really want to do the right thing, and I don't know what happens after that. But
I had two FBI agents assigned to our case over the course of the full abduction period. And neither of them, like, I feel like everyone does a stint in family abduction. Like, nobody is trained on it unless
right,
you're
they're
in
not.
that unless you're in that
Right,
like a rotation. You know,
right.
and I don't think many people volunteer for it because I mean, gosh, of all the actors in our case, I mean, burnout is huge. I can just imagine how many people I had to cry. Like I just broke down on the phone with at the State Department. I went through 3 caseworkers, and I just thinking back, like it was just my calls I remember, and they had to deal with so many of them. And I know that if I were listening to me in my state of despair when they gave me the horrible news that this next thing didn't work, or when I updated them and I'm like, you have to get us out of here. It's, a year's gone by. Like 2 weeks turned into, 2 months, and then 2 months turned into 2 years. I mean, it was just like on and on and on. And every moment is just this new moment of crazy because you're
Yeah,
in a country that is literally at that time, they had just overthrown a dictator. They'd overthrown their government. They were starting along the lines of what, from Western terms we call democracy, but, in a developing space, learning what it was not to be under a dictatorship in the least. And then you had all of these, parties fighting for, power. I am a Muslim hijabi. I'm American 100%. My family came over on the Mayflower. They were either rowing the boat or they were directing it. But, from all sides of my heritage, we are American. And so but I don't present that way. I look like maybe I am North African, and then you're dealing with what's happening in that space. And to be, hijabi in Tunisia at that time was a bit of an oddity, you know So you're dealing with what's happening culturally. I remember going to the courthouse one day and protesters had burned the courthouse the night before. And when I arrived, there was a small, but a small tank in front. The military police, I guess, they looked like they were in more camouflage than a police outfit. Were in front at a border, and then, but just in front of the courthouse, there was a fire truck that had been put on fire, like it had been burned to a crisp. So there's this stuff happening around you. It's like,
Yeah, very scary stuff.
in addition to my children being abducted, us being here, and I want to come home, I'm like, you need to save us. Like, I don't know what I'm in the middle of. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. I can't imagine who volunteers for this work in the long term,
Right, right.
but definitely they should be trained properly before they start acting in their rotation as well. That is,
Yes. It would be better for everyone, including them. Yeah,
indeed. Yeah.
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 So your daughter came home first, right?
Yes.
How did you manage that?
So
And I know you were the force behind it, so
after we received the appellate court ruling and my custody was granted, then we kept doing like Tunisia wouldn't enforce their laws. Like they just wouldn't enforce the judgments. So just because I had custody doesn't mean that I can go to the house and pick up my kids. Like I was required to have law enforcement come in and enforce it, because if I just took them, then I was then being abusive to the children. So they kept that as their back pocket way of keeping the kids there. But I was seeing the children one at a time over weekends when they weren't in school. So like I would have to travel to where they were living and pick up one child on let's say like a Friday night, then return them on Saturday night and pick up the other child, and then bring that child back on Sunday so that they could go to school the next day. So it was exhausting and expensive, but it was a blessing. I could be with them, just not together, because of course if we were together then we could leave, and that was the whole point of keeping everybody separate. So
right.
that went on for a long time, and then there came a point where my attorney was maybe like the fifth time, we're like, we're really there, like really, like you have the right to take the children and go. We just need enforcement, and you'd sort of be told that, okay, well, enforcement's happening soon, like we've talked to the right people, we've put the right things, like everything's in order, your files at the top of the list, like within days it'll happen. So we were in one of those moments, and Zainab was with me, and I had actually gone to pick up Islam. She had told me that day, she said, I don't want to go back. I just don't want to go back, Mommy. I want to stay with you. I want to stay with you. But I had talked to Islam, and he also wanted to come see me. And it was just sort of one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, this enforcement's coming soon. I'll just continue to tell her, but I can't tell Islam no, because Zainab doesn't want to go. So I went to pick up Islam, and then I guess the family had also learned that we were coming close to enforcement. So they started a hiding game. So I had just talked to Islam at his grandparents' house, and he said he was going to be there, and we confirmed I was coming to pick him up. I go to the grandparents' house, and their cousins are sitting outside, 15 and 18 years old, and just sort of laughing at me and like, ha 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 ha, we don't know where they are, and trying to make conversation. I don't know where Islam is. And then I think I called the aunt's house, and Islam picked up. So I knew where he was. So I went to the aunt's house with Zainab, right? Because we still got to do an exchange. And I go to the aunt's house, and then I was blocked from coming into the courtyard because they lived in an apartment building. So here you have a community who knows who you are and knows the family, and now they're protecting the family. So I wasn't able to get to him. And on the way back, I made the decision. I remember I was in the taxi, and I called my mom from the taxi, and I was like, this is it. We have to come home. I had the right of custody. So because Zainab was in my custody, they couldn't take her away. So what we needed was to bring Islam. so then I could go home. And that was a goal. But of course, the family quickly realized that. And so Zainab stayed with me. And then in the areas and spaces we were able to see Islam, suddenly he wasn't showing up. Like sometimes he had soccer on the weekends, and I would just stand at the fence and just let him know I was there. And suddenly he wasn't there anymore. His practice days were mixed up. So it became incredibly clear that we wouldn't, like, if I stayed in Tunisia with Zainab, the longer we stayed, we were not having any additional access to Islam. So it was to the point that even though he's within an hour from us, they're still playing a hiding game. An hour or an ocean wasn't actually making a difference. I'm not yet at the point in time where I'm able to talk about how we left Tunisia.
Okay.
Um, but I had the right to leave with my daughter, and we left legally. That is the extent to which I'll talk about that at the moment. But we also had in that time, that time period that Zainab, I kept her with me. I'd say that was about 6 months total, but that's an off the top of my head estimate. Their father had started to raise um, accusations with the, I guess in closest translation, it would be like the police for children child endangerment. So I found myself in the police station a couple of times. I think maybe three or four, I went through 3 or 4 interrogations. And at that time, the law was that you could not have your attorney there. As a non Arabic, native Arabic speaker, I could have a translator with me, but I couldn't have my attorney with me. So I spent hours in this police station. And I just, like, when you talk about the absurdity of, like, what is it you're asking me? they just kept asking me the same questions over and over. And what were you doing a year ago on April something? And I just, what is it you're trying to understand? I don't know. And, just days on end. And then I remember one time their father was brought in, and like he spat at me, and they just didn't care. And it was just
Oh my
like,
gosh.
it was just really this horrible, ridiculous experience. And I don't fully understand them. Nobody there spoke English fluently. There was one officer who spoke English a little bit, but they're all sort of playing a game, and you can just kind of see them playing a game. It's like, what game are you playing? Like, it was just, and then you have, like, I would always talk to the embassy before I went in and when I left. And so somebody could know where I was. But, there were lots of disappearances in Tunisia over many, many years, and still probably today. And so, you still have that level of, like, this is not my country. I am a foreigner to them just as much as they are foreign to me. I don't know your laws. I'm learning it on the fly.
Oh,
It was just really, really horrible. And then, yeah, it got to the point where it was just clear I had to go. I did not want to leave without a slim, but they were not enforcing. They doubled down on, putting our file at the back of the list. And then so I had custody at that point by the Supreme Court. So 3 custody orders granting me custody of the children based on our US orders applied in Tunisia. So then the father went around and started a domestic custody case. So under Tunisian law, not having custody acknowledged from international, but like now you got to go through a custody case domestically. And all it is the stall tactic, because if you have custody at one level, of course you have custody at the other. And that was the outcome of that. But I didn't stick around for that case to follow through. So that was what they were using to halt enforcement for son to come with me. So yeah, so we left, and then we pursued the case from here. Yeah, that was a lot.
wow. It is a long story, and I can only imagine the heartbreak you went through having to separate the children and coming home with your daughter and not knowing when or if you would see your son again. That had to have been debilitating.
It was, yeah. There's nothing about that decision or that journey that was or remains easy.
Yeah,
And you have to do that very clear logic, like, am I safe here? No. Is he safe here? Yes. Is there anything I can do here that will change anything? No.
that was in Tunisia
Yeah.
here.
And
Yeah,
that was like, I had to continue to reinforce that logic with myself. And
yeah.
it was real. Like, had I stayed, I am sure I would have ended up in prison for any number of things. In fact, it turned out that their father was successful in, so after we left, Zainab and I, he had gone through something to have me, I was convicted, extra whatever, like after I had been in America with Zainab, he had me convicted of kidnapping Zainab.
Wow.
And so I didn't know this. And when I was back, the only the only effort we went through was, how do we get Islam back now? Like, that was everybody. I mean, when you talk about everybody, you've got the State Department, I've still got my local Virginia State policeman who, keeps in the loop. And then you've got your senators, and then you've got your congressmen, and then you've got the FBI. I don't know if I mentioned them already, in the State Department. So, I mean, they get all of the agencies. Like, it's an all of Congress agency efforts, the whole federal effort going on here, right? Because you're talking at all of these levels along the way. The consulate in Tunisia, the ambassador at that point was pulled in at some point after we came home. John Kerry, who was then the Secretary of State, had a conversation with the then President Sepsi, at probably one of the UN meetings in New York, about the importance of the rule of law, and the law is here, you need to enforce it by your own constitution. This is the requirement. Islam is a US citizen. His mother has right of custody, like, you need to enforce these orders. And it still was like, I think his response to John Kerry was, my understanding is that the parents are working it out, it's a domestic issue. It was just blows my mind. You have all of government effort. Really, like, Islam was known in many places, across many spaces. And of course, this sweet child didn't know it because he was in Tunisia. And, like, I
Yeah.
think even to this day, it's not totally clear to him. Just, sorry for that. My phone had
That's
an
okay.
alarm. Just how many people all over this country were really involved and like dedicated to finding his way home. You,
Right.
Nick Mick. Yes. It was after I came home with Zainab when we were introduced,
Yes,
actually. That
I
was,
remember.
yeah, that was our segue to this friendship,
Yes.
for which I'm grateful.
Yeah. There's
Um,
so much more to your story, Adina. And I don't want to rush you, but I am going to put you on the spot. I apologize
that's okay.
beforehand. Would you come back to do another conversation with me so we can hear the rest of your story?
I
Oh,
I will. Yeah, sure.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It has taken so long. I didn't realize I had talked so much. I apologize.
No, of course not. Of course not. And there's, how can we tell our stories in an hour or less than an hour? It's just not possible, especially when there's all of these, I mean, you're going
Fantastic.
down this path and there's all these turns and you don't know which one to take. And it's, each one is painful. And so, yeah. Um, so thank you. Well, I'm glad you'll come back, and um, because the your story is so compelling, and I want our audience to really understand what you went through, what your children went through to get to where you are today. Um, because I admire you so much, and your children. Oh my gosh,
They're incredible.
they are incredible,
Yes,
which
they are.
means you're incredible. So
It means that I had a hand in producing some really, really, really fabulous
Yes,
members of society. That is for sure.
yes,
And I'm grateful.
absolutely.
Certainly grateful.
So we'll make a date and we'll continue our conversation. And before we sign off, well, of course, I want to thank you.
Thank you
I
for
want to
having me.
show our audience, the ones who are on YouTube, a picture of a missing child. And I have to do this right. So um, let's see. Um, Here we go. Wait a minute. Here we go. Here we have an adorable, absolutely adorable little boy.
He's
His
gorgeous.
name is Thomas Milo Henton. He's been missing since November 1st, 2024, and he's 4 years old now. Um, he was last seen on November 1st, 2024. If you recognize this adorable little boy, please call either the National Center at 1-800 The Lost or the Irvine Police Department in California, 949-724-7000. If you are on YouTube and you can see the poster, but if you're on audio, please take a few minutes, go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website at missingkids.org and look for Thomas there. And other children too, because they need your help. You are their voice, and we need you to help search for them. So thank you very much. And I'm going to stop sharing now and give a proper thank you very much to Edeanna and to our wonderful audience for listening in and for caring about missing children. So thank you. And until next time, you'll have to wait for Edeanna to finish her story. And I hope you'll tune in next week. Thank you very much. Bye.